would do it. So sir is also here, I guess. So I welcome students also, as well as Anil sir. And rest, I will now hand over to Anil sir to continue with the workshop.
Hey Suraj, good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone else. Thank you for joining in. Suraj, even I'm curious to know about the surprise. Are you giving Jawan tickets? Are you giving World Cup tickets? What is it?
Yeah, but students would be definitely getting it after exam, like after this workshop only. Definitely, it won't be World Cup tickets, but something which is very special from the preparation point of view.
Okay. Not so exciting then. I see a few people dropping out, but all right. Thank you for joining, and I'll try to keep this session engaged and give you helpful tips in order to clear the exam. But before we begin, how many participants do we have?
Sir, we are having 47 participants.
47. Oh, wonderful. How many of them think that they won't be able to clear this grade B? They're just attempting the exam, trying to understand the format. Anyone who has that mindset?
Guys, if sir is asking anything, you can of course chat. There is a chat section. You can give your answers in the chat section.
Okay, I see one response. And awesome. I see a lot of confidence. Need proper guidance. Yes, thank you. That's what we are here to do. Okay, that's great. Anyone who has already attempted the exam, whether 2023, 2022, or before that? Okay, so that's a mixed crowd. The people who have attempted and people who are going to appear for the first time. So, okay, that's interesting. So one thing I wanted to state before we begin is, no matter what you've studied earlier, no matter whether you attempted the exam before this, even if 2024 is going to be your first attempt, you stand equal chance of clearing the examination. So don't worry about the number of times you've attempted versus somebody else has attempted, number of times it takes, whether there are prerequisite academic qualifications that are needed in order to gain an advantage. So I want to assure you that repeatedly we have seen, whether it's people who have cleared with me, people who've done it before me, people who've done it after me, all have had different paths leading to the examination and to a career in RBI, and no single avenue is a deterrent to anybody. And the numbers increasing. I see there are about 66 now. And how many of you are working today, and how many of you are have either worked and therefore quit in order to prepare for this examination, and how many of you are just out of college or have taken break to prepare for the exam? Okay, fair mix of, again, people who are currently working and people who are preparing solely for this examination. Again, it really doesn't matter what you are doing because the examination is a level playing field. And however, because some of you have mentioned that you are working, do you think you are at a disadvantage compared to somebody who is solely focused on this examination? Okay, that's good. Okay, somebody says kind of yes. No. Okay, that's good. And few yeses and few no's. Suraj, if we can move to the next slide. Yeah, I mean, they've seen enough of me already. I think we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so yeah, the first thing I wanted to convey to those who are working and have some apprehension that this is going to be difficult for me to juggle my work responsibilities, the preparation that's needed for the exam. It's more about the time you have at your disposal rather than what somebody else is doing and whether somebody is able to put in additional 2 hours. So don't worry about that. And I've seen enough number of candidates clear with an existing responsibility, job, personal, otherwise, and also that is quite hectic and demanding, right? Even there, it will not be a homogeneous set. Some of you may be working for 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. No matter what situation you are in, as long as you are able to dedicate 2 to 3 hours daily on a consistent basis, that is what will pave the way for your success in this examination. So today we are going to cover 4 aspects. One is, how do you balance your work responsibilities and preparation? Second, how do you devise a strategy for each phase of the examination so that you excel at all stages, and of course also come out with flying colors? And at the end, if you have any specific questions, we will take up then. Okay. Suraj, next slide, please. Right. If we are targeting 2024, these are the timelines that we are looking at. So notification would probably be out sometime in May, June. Phase 1 will happen a couple of months later. Phase 2 and phase 1 typically have short intervals, so you don't get much time before that. So therefore, all your preparation should end by probably April in order to be completely equipped to deal with various phases. Interview again will happen in a couple of months after phase 2. So that's also something that you need to factor in, that interview preparation does not happen after phase 2 results are declared. That orientation has to begin from day 1. Okay. Let's move on to the next slide. Yes. So the first important thing is whether you are a student, like some of you mentioned, you are in the final year, whether you're working, and obviously that means you are straddling amongst 2 things. It's important to know the syllabus, and when I say syllabus at each phase of the examination. Practice becomes important, and the way to gauge where you are good at and where you need to improve is through mock tests. And then obviously once you do that, you are able to form a good assessment of where your strengths are, and more importantly work on your areas of weaknesses so that they don't become a liability. Is this clear? Okay, let's move on. Right. So this is a rough duration, timeline, heuristic that we have seen from our experience, and of course I followed during the time I was preparing. Agar aapke paas, and I hope people are comfortable with Hindi as well, right? So if you are a student, or if you are either currently in college, or whether you are preparing for competitive exams, you will be able to dedicate more time. So if you are able to take out 4 hours in a day, then you should have 3 important weapons in your armory. First is, there are certain books that whether Oliveboard recommends or whether RBI recommends, you can go through that for mostly the static portion, right? For each subject. Oliveboard has extensive videos on most of the static portion that covers all areas of phase 1 and phase 2. So that will be an important addition. So ideal way to do it is when you listen to the video, then simultaneously you follow what is mentioned in the book. Can I hear somebody else's voice? Can you all mute, please?
जो वो था एडू टैब वाला, हाँ ये अभी चल रहा है, लाइव चल रहा है, भेजू क्या?
Okay, I think we're good to resume. And how well you're progressing on your path towards success in the examination can be gauged by your performance in the mock test. So don't delay attempting mocks, whether it's for phase 1 or phase 2, right? And don't wait till the time you are completely prepared, because there will always be some amount of, whether it's information, whether it's confidence, whether it's lack of remembrance, that will always happen, right? So make sure you follow a specific pattern that we will show in the subsequent slides. If you are a working professional, I know you will not have enough time that you would want to dedicate, but for the purpose of the examination, you should still be confident that you have enough time. And if you are able to take out 2 hours every day, and when you get weekends, holidays, if you are able to allot 2 additional hours, that should help you, right? And given that you will have some time crunch and we need to optimize for time, I will not recommend that you read textbooks, because that involves more time. Videos, condensed material will be able to do the job for you, and focus more on practice and on mock tests. Okay. So this is roughly how you need to structure your time every day for this examination. And especially caution for working professionals, as I mentioned earlier, do not focus on everything else that happens and how much little you have. The little time that you get, make use of it to the best of your ability, and that would help you. Okay. Suraj, next slide, please. Yes. So time management is something that's critical for everyone, whether you are working, whether you have other responsibilities, or whether you don't. Think of this as a marathon and not a sprint, right? We went through the timelines in the earlier slide, and we are looking at a timeline of at least a year before you complete phase 2, and interview, the whole process will take more than a year from here. So think of this as a marathon, right? And if you've seen, often what happens is people who begin aggressively, who are in early lead during marathons, do not end up as medalists, right? So don't worry too much about what you need to do in terms of having that strategic advantage. Focus on your plan and stick to it. So adherence to a plan becomes crucial in determining your success, right? One caution when it comes to, because we are all largely addicted to phone, social media, try to limit your exposure to them. When you take breaks, that is all right. But anything beyond an hour or hour and a half in a day, that's not advisable. YouTube for watching videos, even if it's related to syllabus, is not advisable, right? And have clear distinction between which source you are referring to for what purpose. By this, what I mean is, if you want to read current affairs, do it only from, say, the bold, magazine that Oliveboard issues, or any other source, which provides you concise information that can help you answer trivia questions. Do not read newspaper in general to fetch, source, collect, and store information. If you are reading newspaper, make sure it is the editorial or opinion piece where you are able to understand at depth the major issues that are happening around the country, the way you should construct arguments, and how you are able to then articulate the same thing in your own words. Puneet has a question. Suraj, we will take this up at the end. Please remember that. Puneet, will come to your question towards the end, right? So time management is important, which is why I'm cautioning you against looking at too many sources for gathering information and developing understanding. Okay. Now, Suraj, can we move to the next slide? Yes. So obviously the challenges are significant when you are a working professional, and that therefore you should have a more flexible, study schedule, because you cannot necessarily say that every morning 6 to 8 I will be able to, nor in the evening say 8 to 10, but 2 hours per day is something that you should still aim to achieve. And as far as possible, at least have a window of 1 hour, whether it's in the morning or at night, where you will know that you will be undisturbed. Okay. Commute time learning, that becomes important. So if you are using a medium of public transport, then it's obviously better because you are able to either watch videos, listen to something. Reading is not efficient when you are commuting, but certainly whether it's audio or visual, both can be done. One thing that you can do is when you are preparing yourself, when you are reading, you can try to record yourself so that when you get these lunch breaks, when you have to commute to work or commute from work to home, you can use that to listen to this, because then it's in your own words and easier to understand and to revise, right? Make use of family, friends for support. This is an important exam. You make a lot of sacrifices for it, so make it count. You should still take breaks. You should still enjoy, but do it in a time-boxed manner, right? How many of you have watched Jawan? Jawan, or I just learned that there is an India-Pakistan match today. So my recommendation is, if you are watching it, then maybe watch the last few hours. Don't need to watch the entire match, right? And of course, make use of peers. Peers can be a great way for you to, one, as I said, when you have a plan, the adherence to the plan, to make sure you are progressing together, right? And you can help each other, where obviously your area of strength is something that you can help others with, teach them, and where they need to step in and they need to help you, they can do that as well, right? One thing that is being proved world over is, in isolation we have either many distractions, lack of motivation, but that's where, if you are able to find people with the same mindset, and do not make it a large group, but 2 or 3 people, that can help you a lot. Okay. Suraj, next slide, please. Yes. So now let's look at each of the phases as I indicated earlier and what is required. Okay. Now, most of you are familiar with what the pattern is, how many marks, and what is the duration for the exam, right? But just to reiterate, in case somebody has not seen this, general awareness carries the highest amount of weightage, because 80 questions out of 200 are from this section, followed by reasoning, which has 60 questions. And English and quantitative aptitude each have 30 questions, right? And you also have dedicated duration for all these sections. I'll cover in terms of how you need to strategize each section, but just keep this in mind, in the sense that we have 200 questions, we have 120 minutes, and it's a race against time. Okay. Can we move on to the next slide? Yes, thank you. Now, if we look at the pattern of how the cutoffs have moved across the last 5 years, you will see that it has ranged from the latest one being 64, which translates to just about 30%, to a very high number of about 60% in 2019. So bear in mind that the difficulty level can vary each year. This is just to look at how the trends were. This is no indicator of 2024, but idea is, when it comes to difficulty levels, there can be significant variation, but there are 2 things we need to ensure: that we clear the sectional cutoffs. So if you see, the sectional cutoffs are, Deepika has a question on GA. I'll come back to that at the end of it. So make sure you have enough score to clear sectional cutoffs, which is going to be a maximum of 25%. But if you look at it, even if you add all of them, the overall cutoff is likely to be at least 60 to 80% higher than the sum of sectional cutoffs. And that's where your strategy to excel in 1 or 2 areas of this examination will be handy. Okay. Now, if we want to quickly go through how you need to look at each section, a lot of students have some phobia of quantitative aptitude, and that's the first thing that I want them to get rid of. If you look at the sectional cutoffs, 4.56, 7.5, trust me, this is quite doable. This is middle school, high school mathematics, arithmetic. There's absolutely no reason for you to not be able to meet this cutoff. So that is something that you need to ensure first. Go through the videos, start practicing mocks, and make sure if you have, as we discussed on the previous slide, if you have 25 minutes, the aim should be that you will attempt at least 12 to 13 questions with a high degree of accuracy. If your speed is slow, don't worry about it. Focus on accuracy at the beginning. Speed can be improved over time. Do not compromise accuracy for speed. But even if you do not, even if that's not your best section, even if you do not have complete confidence, by say January 2024, you should be able to get to a stage where you are able to attempt 12 to 13 and you're able to answer about 10 of them correctly, right? Now, English is a relatively easier section to deal with. It also has numerous topics. You have to look at grammar, you have to look at parts of speech, you have to look at tenses, you have to look at reading comprehension. So reading comprehension is something that students usually go wrong with. And that's because they do not focus during the preparation part. Reading comprehension is largely a function of logic. So when you read the newspaper, do it attentively. As I said earlier, if you are reading the newspaper, that is purely for editorial and opinion section. Your reading comprehension passages are largely taken from newspapers, right? The question of which newspaper, whether it's the Hindu, Indian Express, any newspaper is okay, right? There is not much advantage or disadvantage you have by choosing one over the other. Stick to one newspaper. Okay. No matter which one it is, focus on, as I said, the editorial and opinion pieces for, again, improving your accuracy in reading comprehension. Focus on mock test. Okay. When it comes to reasoning, now reasoning, I feel students take up a lot of time and they do not get adequate score out of this section purely because they attempt the wrong questions. Now, if you are someone where again speed is a concern, or if you have challenges with any form of reasoning, which means different types of puzzles you need to solve, say circular arrangement, rectangular arrangement, say, different types of charts, bar graphs that you need to dissect. My suggestion would be to begin with standalone questions where they are not linked to one another. And then you focus on solving the set questions, right? Series of 3-4 questions where there's some information you deduce and then you answer all of them together, right? My prescription is that the set questions should be deferred towards the end. And for each question, you should have a hard stop. Okay. The reason I started with quantitative aptitude was that if you gain certain confidence with quantitative aptitude, it will also help you with good amount of questions in reasoning. Because a lot of reasoning also has to do with arithmetic. Okay. Lastly, the biggest one of them, that is general awareness. And that's where so I've seen a lot of students who fall at ends of the spectrum. Either they're very good at it and they're able to score, say, 50 plus, or they end up with scores of 15 to 20. It's mostly a function of not doing it consistently, especially the current affairs part. So again, going back to the timelines, assuming phase 1 will be held at around July, August, there's a lot of current affairs trivia that happens over this time, right? We are looking at timeline of about 8-9 months. So what will happen over this time frame is that you will not remember everything that you have read. Revision is the key for that, but more importantly, what I would advise you is to stick to one source for it. Spend half an hour daily on current affairs. Bold is a good source. Please refer to that. Revise religiously. Suraj, next slide, please. Okay. Now, while we've spoken a lot about mock tests, why they are important, I wanted to show this slide to illustrate what should happen after you give a full-length mock test, or it can be a sectional test. It doesn't matter. The illustration is for a full-length mock test. But if there are 200 questions, you have attempted X, you have not attempted 200 minus X. Look at why you were not able to attempt those questions. As I have already put in the preface, time is a real constraint, right? That could be a factor. But let's assume today, because you are starting out, you are able to attempt 80 questions. 3 months later, that number should improve to say maybe 100 or 110, right? Second, you looked at the question, you read question, but you didn't know how to solve it, right? Which is also possible because it's not something that you have come across earlier, or you did, but you didn't clearly understand. So the way to fix this is to go back, try to understand, seek help from Oliveboard team on this, and try to plug that deficiency, right? Third is, you saw the question, you had a fair idea of what to do. You attempted, maybe you reached 2 steps out of 3 or 4 steps, but after that you were unable to, right? Now that's a deficiency with practice and revision, right? So that is something, again, where your mock test will help you. Right? Go back to the topical test and then focus on that. Okay. Now, you've attempted X questions. That X can vary between individuals. As I said, focus more on accuracy rather than speed. You got, say, Y out of them correct, and incorrect X minus Y. Now, the questions that you got incorrect, look at why that happened. Again, you guessed without fully understanding, which happens because we are again under time pressure. We don't have enough time, and we just take a guess, right? I've eliminated 2 options. It turned out to be right. Or in this case, it turned out to be incorrect, right? Lack of attention to detail is something that you should definitely minimize. And this is where I see most candidates going wrong. I know what is to be done, but either it's because I don't have enough time, or I'm not using the right method to get to the answer. I have not, got the right answer. So I'll explain what it means. How much is 80% of 100? That's 80, right? How much in terms of percentage is 100 of 80? Please type the answers. Okay, I see one correct answer. Right. So this is where a lot of students will go wrong, right? This is something I want you to avoid to the extent possible. There will be 1 or 2 places we will slip, but please ensure that these mistakes don't occur. Right? Even among the ones that you have answered correctly, it's not always the case that you took the shortest time possible or shortest route possible. There will be numerous questions, whether it's in quantitative aptitude or whether it's in reasoning, where you will be able to get to the answer without necessarily solving them. Right? So look at those questions, and whatever additional time you get will be helpful for you to answer, attempt more, and increase your score. So therefore, if you are looking at a mock test, full length mock test of 2 hours, you should be able to analyze it for about 3 hours. That can give you 3 to 4 hours. That can give you a comprehensive picture of what went right during the mock test, what did not go right, and how you can improve during the next mock test. Suraj, can we move on? Yes. So now let's look at each section, and we're beginning with reasoning. So as I said, the key to reasoning is to practice and to identify patterns. When you have a mock test, whether it's a sectional test or whether it's a topic-based test, have a hard stop for each question. Okay. 2 minutes should be the outer limit for a standalone question, right? No matter what the difficulty is, please do not take it upon your ego that I need to solve every question that I am looking at. I need to attempt it. If you are not able to, move on. एग्जाम में बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस है. एक क्वेश्चन गलत होने से, एक क्वेश्चन अटेम्प्ट नहीं करने से, you are not going to be rejected. Okay, focus. If you're not able to solve, move on. Focus on the next question. Right? Inevitably, you will have questions on seating arrangement. So practice them. Be mindful of which sets you will attempt in the exam. And even for a particular set, look at the equation. You have 60 questions. You have 45 minutes. If a set contains 5 questions, if by say 5th or 6th minute, you are no closer to solving the puzzle, move on. Right? There are enough questions for you to answer. If you leave set of 5 questions, that is okay. And the key to success, remember the block at the bottom left and the top right. Practice mocks in a time-bound manner. That is the real simulation that can give you a feel. If this question were asked in the exam, how best do I answer it? Do I leave it? Why do I leave it? Today, I am not attempting it. With more practice, am I able to attempt it? Okay. Suraj, next question, please. Next slide, sorry. Yes. So this is more a reiteration of what I discussed on the previous slide. You need to identify your strengths and you need to be able to judge and decide which questions to attempt and which questions to skip. Okay. Attempt mocks regularly. So whenever you are done with a particular topic, you watch the video, you've gone through the material, you practiced a few questions in the material, now start attempting mocks. Okay. Next slide, please. Right. So there is a sample reasoning question here, which is more to do with direction and placement, right? So it's a bit lengthy. You can read it. I'll pause for a minute for you to read it, and then we'll look at how you can answer this question, right? Okay. So I'll just quickly give you the way I would approach this question. Now, remember, it starts with point H and G, and then it goes to point A and R, right? And then there is point P, D. All of those are unrelated, at least at first glance. So the first thing we need to do is find the connection. If we are looking at H and G, where else do I find? And that's at the last sentence, right? And work my way upwards to it to find all the connections, right? We'll give you the answers at the end because it's lengthy and we have different topics to cover. I just wanted to illustrate that if you start plotting this on a piece of paper, don't go in a linear fashion. Try to find the connection, right? And the common thread here becomes point G, and that's how you will be able to identify the other points and where they are located on the map. Okay. Can we move on? Right. General awareness, some of you asked earlier. I'll repeat this quickly. As I said, the Indian Express, the Hindu, anything is okay, but don't spend a lot of time in reading news apart from editorial and opinion. Follow Bolt, that is prepared by Oliveboard, right? Look at previous year questions. Obviously, solving previous year questions. Devesh, Live Mint is a good source. Again, stick to editorials. I don't. Marginal utility will be diminishing after a point, and if you want to stick to one source, preferably this, then analyze previous year's questions. Attempt monthly current affair tests regularly. So what I want you to do is, and I'll cover this in a subsequent slide, but what I want you to do is spend half an hour on current affairs every day, mostly for the trivia part, which means about 20 minutes for the current days and 10 minutes for previous day. Revise once a week and then revise once a month and then take tests. Okay. Most important, I think this should have been underlined, limit your sources. Okay. Suraj, next slide, please. Yes. Special focus on government schemes, because whether it's for phase 1 or phase 2, they will be important. Statistics in terms of what is the GDP growth rate, what is the inflation rate, whether it's for India, world, any of them, all those data points become important. So as you keep reading newspaper, what I will recommend is the fact that you will, if you can create a Google Doc or some form of note taker, and you can simply copy paste and you revise them, that'll be easier, right? Suraj, next slide, please. Yeah, so there are a few questions here, pretty straightforward in terms of what is asked. Some of them are static, some of them are more current affairs related. But just to give a flavor of what it can be, and that's where it's more of how it becomes important in your preparation. Can we move on? Right. How many of you resonate? यहाँ पे जो दिखाया गया है, जहाँ पे लिखा है, how many of you feel the same way? Deepika has a question. How many months of current affairs? Deepika, for examination, it last 6 months becomes paramount. But otherwise, it's more for you to inculcate a habit of, reading it. So start, even if you're starting today, that's okay. Right? Don't have inhibitions or don't have hesitation when it comes to English. Fluency, I have not, studied in an English medium school. वो सब भूल जाओ, right? Focus more on reading, and obviously if you are spending an hour or so in reading editorials or opinion pieces, in a few months' time, the vocabulary part will improve, fluency will improve, right? And the best way to overcome any form of fear is to read and write and then also speak. Novel, I don't strongly recommend. Right? I don't think it's useful for the examination. For sake of just a hobby, you want to do it, that is okay. Can we move on? Suraj, next slide, please. Yes. As I said, the key is in paying attention to what you are reading. So there are 3 things that you can gain from reading newspaper. One is purely the words or vocabulary that you can use, which are context specific, and that will help you also impress the examiner. The second is the construction of the sentence itself. Third is the construction of the argument itself, right? In an editorial, they will choose to highlight three aspects. Why have they chosen? How are they looking at it? What is the argument itself? How are they substantiating with data, with examples, with instances, right? Vocab learning can be fun. So I see a lot of apps where you can do crossword. So that's something you want to spend 15 minutes every day. That's okay. No, you don't need CAT, GRE, GMAT level English. This is pure conversational and some professional language skills that are expected where you are able to articulate. Don't focus too much on vocabulary. Focus on getting grammar right. Focus on making it easily understandable, right? And yes, of course, today, chat GPT becomes almost ubiquitous. So that is something that you should definitely use in order to improve your grip on the language, right? Suraj, next slide, please. Yeah, Hindu editorial vocab is sufficient. It's more than sufficient, right? Now, if you look at this, there are a few, it's a zigzag path for a certain reason. Focus on grammar, verbs and preposition. That's your paths of speech. Second is wherever you are making mistakes, try to rectify them. Third, get a better grip on reading and writing, and then try to look at usage of alternative but better sounding words, not emphasizing too much on the last aspect, because that's something that is next slide, please. Okay, this is probably the dreaded subject for most. So we've discussed at length initially. So next slide, please, Suraj. Quant is more about practice, right? Yes. And as we discussed, there is a lot of commonality between how you prepare for quant and how you prepare for reasoning. Timing yourself for every question becomes important. No, there is no need of CAT level questions. There will be easier questions. As I said, we don't need to look at scoring 25 out of 30, 20 out of 30. It's an easier paper. Yes, we will move towards double digits, but the first objective is to clear the sectional cutoff, which could be maximum of 7.5. Okay. Know which questions to attempt and which questions to skip. My personal preference is towards arithmetic. Percentages, profit and loss, age, ratio, proportion, time, speed, and distance. All you need to do is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Can you do these? Yes. Then you're clear. ये सब स्कूल में किया था. 5th, 6th, 7th. So trust me, there is no rocket science in this. It's quite doable. Practice more. Don't have inhibition. Okay. Let's move on. All right. So here, let's look at a weekly plan that can help you cover various subjects of phase 1 in a day-wise manner. So Monday, if you are doing quantitative aptitude, start with week 1, you will do profit and loss. Thursday, again, you will pick up mixtures and allegations, like I said, ratios and all that. Permutation, combination, probability. Week 2, move on to number systems and percentages. Then look at simple interest, compound interest. Week 3, look at data interpretation, ratio and proportion. Week 4, work and time, sequence and series, seating arrangement. Similarly, for reasoning, if you are choosing 2 days of the week, then start with series pattern identification, then move on to orders, alphabet tests, puzzles, and syllogisms. Syllogisms are logical deductions, right? If all cats are dogs, can I say all dogs are cats? Can I? Okay, please type in your answers, right? Input, output, and tabulation. Then, of course, logical reasoning and data sufficiency. seating arrangement, coded inequalities. We discussed seating arrangement in one of the previous slides. Blood relations becomes an important set related question. So that is something that you should spend enough time on. Syllogisms have different subparts to it. So that will need more of practice, because I fear that those silly mistakes can be more in syllogisms. English, focus on reading comprehension, and reading comprehension not just from the point of examination, but even when you read the newspaper. Vocabulary, paragraph completion, reading comprehension, if you see, is repeated. Idioms, phrases, these are more of, practice, right? And does somebody have a question on why general awareness portion is not covered in the 6 days of the week? I think that's already mentioned here. Current affairs has to be done religiously on a daily basis. Yes, that is true, right? Please don't avoid or defer it towards the end. Frequent revision is what will help you, okay? Whenever you are done with a topic, practice the topic-wise tests. Don't ignore that, and then build on that. Analyze it. And the way to analyze, I've already explained in one of my previous slides. Can we move on? Okay, so now moving on to phase 2, what we need to look at is economic and social issues, where it's a mixture of descriptive and objective questions. Same thing for finance and management and English, right? Move on, please. Yeah, these are cutoff trends. I wouldn't worry too much about it, but just to give you an idea of how it has moved across the years. Next slide. Yes. Economic and social issues, we discussed even for phase 1, you should be thorough with government schemes, especially to do with ministries of education, social justice, women and child development. Budget becomes important. And of course, any new recommendations, reports, policies that are being adapted, and look at a different lens, and I'll explain once we move to the next slides. Suraj, next slide, please. Yes, the idea is the static portion is something that you should be able to complete by November, right? Newspaper reading is something that will help you with economic and social issues, will help you with finance and management. The objective should be that whenever you're reading the newspaper, you should try to summarize it in your own words. And as I referred to in my previous, slide on note taking, make sure you have a Google Doc. I don't prefer going through a physical newspaper. E-paper is easier to copy paste, to store, and also to revise. Okay. It's important to write, and yeah, there are some sample questions here. I probably picked 15 marker question to explain economic reforms and all types of reforms to from 90s till now. And then if you want to look at it, and this is one thing I recommend, is mostly for ESI, definitely, I prefer a framework which is called as SPELT, S-P-E-L-T. S stands for social, P for political, E for economic or environmental, L for legal, T for technological. Now, not every issue will have all the lenses to it, but it will have at least 2 or 3 lenses. So whether it's, say, rural entrepreneurship, whether it's urbanization that's spreading to villages, but race, caste, gender, you can always use this framework in order to construct your answer. What is the social angle to it? What is the economic angle to it? What is the technological angle to it? Okay. So if you look at the way the questions are framed, some of them can appear to be static, and like it was mentioned in one of the previous slides, अगर आप चैट जीपीटी यूज करते हो तो इसके आंसर्स तो आपको मिल जाएंगे, बट अगर आप चैट जीपीटी से आंसर उठा रहे हो, आपको मार्क्स तो नहीं मिलेंगे. So the way you can stand out and you can distinguish yourself is by adding examples, adding contrary viewpoints, right? If you say kindly write a short note on current monetary policy framework, you can describe all the theoretical aspects. MPC, committee, when do they say it, how do they deliberate? But you should come up with your own view of whether the framework has been effective or not effective, to what extent, what are the gaps. Okay. Suraj, next slide, please. Next slide. Yes. Management, finance and management also have a lot of static portion, which is why I want you to be cautious about the sources that you use and the time you devote to gaining hold a single source and revise the same source multiple times, right? As I said earlier, the best way is to make short notes on each topic. Short notes meaning about 200 to 250 words, right? Can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah, if you look at it, see, for example, let's look at, say, what was Henry Fayol's contribution to management, also talk about his 14 principles. I'm sure a lot of students are aware of this, right? And writing about 14 principles is something that most will be able to do. Now, contribution is where your answer can be different from others. That means you are talking about positives and negatives, or you are stitching it to something that has happened previously or something that happened later on. How do you look at Henry Fayol's versus what Taylor did before that? Or say there is an Elton Mayo that came up with Hawthorne principles later on, right? Or there is Herbert Simon, right? So all of these go into how we look at and where we stand today in terms of what are, you know, the principles of management. Are we looking at the same 14 principles? Have they changed? To what extent are they valid? Have we become more empathetic? Have we become more well-rounded? Was the view at that point at least more top-down? And today we are looking at a two-way collaboration. These are some of the things that you should highlight. As far as possible, take current examples to showcase this. Short note on managers' role in encouraging ethical behaviors. Show examples where manager led by example leadership in company following ethical behavior, or contrary, where if manager is unable to demonstrate ethical behavior, how it can damage the company. Numerous such examples in the corporate world, right? It starts with one person, obviously somebody who is at the top, and then it has a cascading effect, right? You can read about these almost regularly in India or across the world. Now, finance, so there was a question earlier in terms of which newspaper, which source to follow. If at all you need to, then I will suggest that you follow, maybe Livement is a good source for that, and you can follow that. Static portion, again, make sure you complete it in 2 months, largely what is there in the reading material, plus watch videos on the static portion. Attempt mock tests, both objective and subjective, because objective also will be a fair bit of current affairs. Okay. Can we move on? Next slide, please. Right. Again, you have here a mix of questions which are to do with current affairs plus somewhat static portion. So pre-sanctioned credit lines at banks through UPI. This is something that was just announced a week ago. September 4th, this circular came out from RBI. In fact, this was announced a little while before in the monetary policy developmental statement by RBI. Second is more of static portion, short note on India's response to global financial crisis. This will be largely a function of what was the fiscal response, what was the monetary response. We cut down interest rates, we did all these things, we induced some stimulus package and so on. But again, ye kahani sabke paas hogi. What was India's response? Anything that is available on the internet will immediately give you this, right? question for you should be that how do I add substance to it in a meaningful manner? So that means we should be able to demonstrate that if we deem that India's response was successful, we dealt better than other countries, then India grew at say 8% versus the rest of the world, which had a negative growth or which grew at say maybe 1%, right, during that time. Okay. Unemployment, which happened in rest of the world, especially developed world, was more as compared to what it was in India, right? Or what was the immediate effect was positive, but there were some negative effects that were felt later on. So this is how you make your answer impressive. और ये हमेशा याद रखना, फैक्ट्स नरेट करने में nobody will get extra marks. हमारी कोशिश ये रहनी चाहिए कि वो फैक्ट्स हमारे आर्ग्यूमेंट्स को ऐड करे, उसको सपोर्ट दे, उसको स्ट्रेंथ दे, राइट? Explain in detail RBI's retail direct scheme, including scope, applicability, charges, fees, etc. Right? Seems a pretty straightforward question, but if you stick to what is mentioned there, scope, applicability, charges, and fees, not a lot that your answer will be different from somebody else's. How has the uptick been? Aaj tak, what was the quantum of investment that is gone in through this retail direct scheme? Is it a success? Is it not a success? If it's not a success, what should be done in order to improve the penetration, right? Before that, the way to introduce the topic itself is to say that why did RBI introduce this retail direct scheme? What is the problem that was there in participation in government security market? What is the way to, bring about more participation? How does it help? Whether it's liquidity of government bonds that are issued, or whether how does it benefit retail investors, both, right? Can we move on? Yeah. So please remember, you don't have to do any word limit. Look at it this way: 10-mark question, 150 to 200, where 15-mark question, 250 to 300. That's the way you should structure it, right? Don't try to do things radically different. Put more thought on anything that you are reading, writing, practicing, and get more out of it. Okay? Which is why everything that is put on this slide is to help you do that. Please remember, brain remembers through repeated exposure, which is why you need to revise. Revise, and we have this goal, as I said, especially for current affairs, daily, weekly, monthly. Same thing you can do for other sections as well, right? Please revise on a weekly and monthly basis, definitely. Okay. Suraj, next slide, please. Yeah. So this is final cutoff. If you see, the pattern also has changed a little bit. So the total is also not the same now. The weightage for interview has gone up. But then, nevertheless, if you see the difference between interview and the phase 2 cutoff, that is quite high and will be difficult purely to cover on the basis of interview, which is why try to maximize your score in phase 2. Okay. Suraj, next slide. Yes. When it comes to interview, important tips are the fact that preparation begins right now. Anything you are reading, anything you are writing for phase 2, think of it as an interview question and record your 1.5 minute answer. If I'm asked this in the interview, how would I answer? Okay. And even for, there were certain questions earlier. I don't have confidence. I don't know how to, answer, or I'm not able to recollect. The way to improve your fluency, the way to improve your oral presentation is through practice. Record yourself, listen to it, right? Now go back and then think of how else could I have answered it in a better manner. What is something that is important that I have forgotten? मुझे 3 point बोलनी थी, मैंने सिर्फ 2 point बोला. So next time revise that. And always try to, when it comes to interview, always don't try to mug up your answer, even though you try to prepare for it. Just remember the bullet points. I have to present an argument, I have to provide some data point. सिर्फ उतना याद रखना. Okay? Be confident. That is what is most important. Sit in front of the mirror or sit in front of your phone, record your answers and then watch it and then improvise, or sit with your family, sit with your friends and make them interviewers. Okay? And then solicit their feedback. Has launched a personalized mentorship program for 2024. Now, this will give you maximum interface with faculty members, with mentors who have cleared the examination earlier. So this journey of year and year plus, Oliveboard team will be with you throughout and they will help you at every stage. And in order to make you, clear the exam with flying colors to help you succeed. Okay. So major contents of what the course is and how it has a comprehensive coverage across phase 1, phase 2 interview. So you can see that there are video lectures for all static portions. There are full length mock tests. There are sectional tests. There are topic wise tests. You have a lot of material, whether it's current affairs or other aspects of the exam for phase 1 and phase 2. Make sure you complete all of them. The questions are designed in a manner that they mirror the real questions that you face in the examination. Okay. All right. So thank you, folks. This was a long talk, but thank you for listening. And let's look at some of the questions that have not been answered yet. Suraj, can you help with some of the questions?
Hello. Hello.
Yes, Suraj.
Yeah, it was a very fruitful session, sir. I guess all the students, I think they should be actually so excited. They were excited. We could see the responses also. Initially, sir, we saw almost 40 students were there, but then we reached till 102. So, and like it was a really huge response from the student side. I will also give an insight that my experience of this workshop was also again fruitful. Not only did students, I think they got insight of how to prepare, maybe strategy, plan, and exam pattern, but apart from that, they also got different examples and what should be we more concentrating on. So they got hard facts in this whole of this workshop, and I think for that I would really thank you. Now we'll start with the Q&A sections. Let's start with our first question. The first question, sir, one thing you recommended to student that you shouldn't be relying on YouTube for videos for study purposes. So student has asked that why YouTube videos are not recommended.
Yeah, so there are two reasons for it. One is the quality of content is not pre-judged or predetermined. So there will be some good sources, there will be some not so good sources, but it will take you a lot of time to figure out. Second is you already have all that on a single platform, which Oliveboard is giving you. So make Oliveboard that single source of preparation for you when it comes to these videos. The third thing is videos are only recommended when you are not, especially for current affairs, because there will be more or less a repetition of other things. Only when you are not able to read yourself. Psychologically, scientifically, it's established that when you are watching something, it's more passive. So the attention span is lesser and how much you grasp out of it is lesser. So the reward to effort ratio is not good.
Okay. I hope the students got why they should not rely on YouTube. Let's go to next question. A student has asked, is self-preparation enough to crack this exam?
Self-preparation is enough to crack the examination. There are quite a few people who have cracked the examination. However, obviously, with the help of somebody like Oliveboard, it will boost your chances a lot. It will also help you if you have constraints with respect to quality of material that is available as well, right? So if you are unable to take coaching for some reason, don't get disheartened by it. Self-preparation can help you. I will, in any case, recommend that you do attempt mock tests, even if you are not necessarily taking classes or for the theoretical portion, you are taking help. Mock tests are important.
Okay. So now let's move to one more doubt. Sir, there is a student who has asked, how can we improve our reading and writing?
So the best way to improve reading and writing, जैसे मैंने पहले कहा था, if you are reading newspaper for a day, then 3 things that you can get out of it. Look at the words they have chosen. Look at the sentences, how they have been framed. Now you try to do it in your own words, right? Make it a practice. So if you are reading an editorial piece that is of say 250 words, you try to summarize it in 100 words. So 250 words for you to read, let's assume it takes you about 10 minutes. Now try to summarize it in 5 minutes. But हर न्यूज़पेपर में 2 editorial होते हैं दिन का. So make sure you do that. If you practice this summarization on 2, say, articles every day, that will help you.
Sir, on the same topic, a question is there. Though you recommended that you can choose any newspaper, but there is a student who has asked that which newspaper we should rely on, and also suggest us some editorials for improving.
Okay. Okay. So now, yes, as I said, any newspaper, that's not a concern. Editorial, opinion, both have quality content. So don't worry about that. For example, if you look at Indian Express, they have an explained section. Now, explained section, I like it because it gives a comprehensive or holistic view of what the issue is. And it looks at, as I said earlier, 3-4 aspects, right? In terms of what you should read in editorials, for example, today, if I look at the Hindu, there is one on the importance of ties between India and ASEAN countries, right? Now, these are things that you need to watch out for, because this is important from economics or from a finance standpoint, because this has a lot of correlation. So if we want to look at areas that you want to focus on, first would be, as we discussed, anything to do with government schemes that have been launched recently, more to do with education, women and child development, health, right? Predominantly these. Beyond that, rural infrastructure, rural development, agricultural development, anything for farmers. So that's how you need to categorize them, right? Second, in the finance aspect, budget, inflation, GDP growth rate, these become important, right?
Yes, sir. Okay. So let's move to the next question. Sir, there is a student, Adarsh, and he has mentioned that reasoning has haunted him since last 2 attempts. He has given 2 attempts of RBA. Couldn't clear phase 1 solely because of reasoning, especially statement and conclusion type of question. I think he has a doubt regarding preparation, especially for reasoning.
So, Adarsh, yes, reasoning is a tricky section itself. So, if that has been the sole, blocker for you in order to moving ahead from phase 1 to phase 2, what I would recommend is to do more of practice, do more of revision, and attempt more mock tests, specifically for some of the topics that you mentioned, whether it's statement conclusion or whether it's for other topics as well. Now, if, as I said, there are largely 3 metrics I will give you in order to gauge your progress, right? 60 questions, 45 minutes. So today, if you are looking at, right? Say you look at 30 questions, you attempt, say, 24 of them, you get, say, 20 right. Then 2 months later, objective should be that you look at, say, 36 questions, you are able to attempt 30, 31 of them, and you are able to get 27 or so correct. The way to, and specifically regarding reasoning, is it the fact that you are able to attempt less because you get stuck? For that, the solution is that you move on, you attempt other questions. If it's the fact that your accuracy is low, that means the understanding is not to the level that is desirable. So you go back, watch the videos, get in touch with Oliveboard faculty, take help on specific topics, whether it's statement conclusion or anything else. Practice more of those topics, right?
Okay. I'll request students to not leave because it would be a huge loss for them. I will again remember all that. A big surprise is there for all of you guys at the end of this workshop. So please stay tuned. Okay. So the next doubt is that from where to read the government schemes and how to memorize them.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes. For government schemes, the best sources can be PIB. And so most of what, say, Bolt contains will cover government schemes. You can look at PIB as well. That will have some. And you can also refer to any additional material. So a lot of coaching centers which do this monthly compilation of current affairs also have their own version, so you can and it's available on websites also. You can take anybody, any schemes are, right? There will never be, especially for phase 2, there will never be a simple question on what it is. The question will be on rather, why is the scheme launched? So look at, we referred to this in the earlier slide: who, what, when, where, why, how. Answer these questions, right? Who is it designed for? What is it meant to do? Why has it been rolled out? How will the scheme be implemented? What are the expected benefits out of it? Right? So focus on those things. When you ask the question, where should I read government schemes from? Best source would be your current affairs material, but go beyond what the scheme mentions about basic details and look at what you can infer in terms of what are the, always gauge the impact of the scheme or the expected impact of the scheme. That should clearly come out in your answer when it comes to phase 2 or interview. When it comes to phase 1, it's more of memorization, which is anyway handy, present in Bolt or say PIB.
Okay, sir. So I hope the doubts are being resolved here. Sir, one optimistic question has been there and it has been asked on your, I think it is opinion. I would say it is an opinion-based question. According to you, how many students of this session will clear RBI Grade B? Or how many achievers will you create, sir? This is a question from a student.
This seems more like a challenge. And if it's a challenge, then I think, Suraj, you mentioned 103?
Yes, 102, 3 students.
103. So 103 will clear. I don't see any room for self-doubt, whether it's on my behalf or whether it's you that have that doubt about whether you will be able to clear the exam.
Exactly, sir. This should be the mindset for any of the exam. I also second that. The next question, which is, sir, can this weekly timetable be followed by absolute beginners?
Absolutely.
Okay. The next question is, you have mentioned to study GA every day for 30 minutes, but also mentioned to go for last 5 months only for exam purpose. So shall we start by Jan 2024 for GA every 30 minutes?
No, please. No, please. That preparation has to start today. The last 5 months have greater importance than whatever we are doing today. That doesn't mean you shouldn't expect a question. That doesn't mean RBI will not ask anything that has happened over this period. Think of the examination in a holistic manner. Phase 1, phase 2, yes, we will devise strategies, but current affairs is present everywhere. And whatever you read, remember one thing, issues are always recurring. Okay? So your regular reading will help you build on whatever you are doing and add more substance.
So the last question we are going to ask, sir, if you could tell us in brief about your experience clearing the exam with first rank and then now life at RBI.
Okay, experience. I mean, I'll just keep it brief. So one thing I think that has worked well for me, and that is what I have mentioned over the course of more than an hour today, is trying to maintain focus, right? Not read too much, not spend too much time in reading multiple sources. It's more about revision, more about practice. Okay. Now, second, life at RBI. I am currently not at RBI. I was at RBI for 3+ years. And life at RBI is hectic, it's demanding, but it's good. You will get a lot of exposure, and you will be dealing with top officials, whether internally or externally. That's the best part. So in management, we usually use a term that is called learning curve. कि कितना जल्दी हम सीख पाते हैं चीजें, and that learning curve is very steep. That means through exposure and through the work that you are assigned, you learn things, you pick up things quickly, and therefore you are able to develop a well-rounded personality.
Okay, so we come to the end of the Q&A session also. Now, just rather than declaring the what giveaway is, I want people to just anticipate and mention it in the comment section. I'll just give you a hint. For any exam, if you want to clear government exam, there are two important things from which we start our preparation. First is, of course, exam syllabus, but there is one more thing from which we start our preparation. Can anybody mention in the comment section what is the giveaway here? Okay, the comment sections are saying free coaching for 1 year. No, that's way too much expectation. Discount motivation mindset. Yes, Sweet has given the right answer. It's previous year papers solved questions for phase 1 also and phase 2 also. So in the chat box only now we are going to give a link where you will get all the previous year questions of RBI for phase 1 and phase 2. And you would be personally mailed also all the questions. So this was a major giveaway. This is a very enriching resource. Okay, this is a very enriching resource for any of the preparation of government exam. It may be RBI, it may be Nabard, it may be regulatory bodies, any exam. Unless and until you don't go through proper analysis of previous year questions, it becomes very difficult to understand the vein of the exam. Okay, so therefore, I wish all the students that they will definitely use this giveaway. And at the same time, there is also a free counseling session, which the details have been mentioned in the same mail, as well as the details have been given in the chat box section. Okay, so this was all about the giveaway, and I will thank all the students. I will specially mention here, as well as thank Anil sir for his wise advice also, and a very wisdomful session, I would say. So that's it from my side, and we will end the session here. Thank you, everyone. And it's been very delightful to have a workshop and be a part of it.
Thank you, Suraj, and delighted to see the participation and engagement. Hopefully, you will keep up the motivation, and I hope you succeed, and all the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.